Oh, hey everyone, it's Emily, and today I'm filming a video that I'm very excited to film because I love gushing about audiobooks and narrators. So I would like to do a video just talking about my favorite audiobooks of the year. There is some overlap with my favorite books of the year because I listen to quite a few books on audio, and sometimes some of those books also happen to be my favorite books that I've read in a year. But I also just want to take a chance to gush about some wonderful narrators that I've listened to throughout 2020, and yeah, just talk about why I love these audiobooks. And this is in no particular order. I just kind of look at the list of books I've read this year and just put a list on my phone of the ones that really stood out to me as really good audiobooks or really good narrators. So here we go. First, I want to gush about Steve West because he's one of my favorite narrators. Basically anything that's narrated by Steve West I will want to listen to on audio because I could listen to him talk forever and I would love it. So this year I listened to, he narrated the Crown's Game duology, as well as the Strange the Dreamer duology. He also narrated some other stuff I listened to this year. He's also narrated some other stuff I've listened to this year, including the Sands of Arawia series. He's one of the narrators in there, along with another narrator that I'll talk about a little bit later. And he also is one of the narrators in the Ember and the Ashes series. He's a fantastic narrator, and he just has like a lovely, deep voice, and he can do some very different voices as well, but it's really helpful for him to be able to do. He can do all sorts of things with his voice, to be able to differentiate between different characters in a way that's not too dramatic or too distracting, but you can still tell that he's talking from a different character's perspective. And he's just fantastic. He's just wonderful. I also listened to a couple of the books in the what was the first one? The Ash Princess series by Laura Sebastian, and these are narrated by Saskia Marlaveld, and she was absolutely wonderful. I fell in love with these books in part because I think of her narration. She was so good at just getting into the character's head, getting emotion into her voice, and you could just feel everything that the main character was feeling. And I think that's a trait of a lot of these narrators, and a trait of a really good narrator for me, is really being able to portray that emotion with their voice. And she just nailed this one. Absolutely nailed this one, and I would love to listen to other stuff that she's narrated. I don't think I've listened to anything else that she's narrated, but she was definitely a standout this year. I absolutely loved her voice in general, but also just her ability to really get into a character's head and have you feel everything that they're feeling. She was one of the best. I also listened to the Daevabad Trilogy, and these are narrated by Soneela Nankani. She also narrated Stardaughter, and she's just fantastic. Just the pacing that she has with her voice, the intonation that she has with her voice is just fantastic, and it's hard to describe why I love her narration so much, but I loved Nari, and I think she really understood Nari and really was able to portray her really well. I think she was another good example of, and I guess another common thing with a lot of these narrators, I like it when a narrator can kind of be subtle about differentiating their voices between different characters. I like it when you can tell when there are different characters speaking, but they don't do anything too dramatic with their voice and kind of get into a weird zone with their voice solely for the sake of being able to differentiate characters. She was one of the best at doing male voices and she differentiated her voice enough that you could very clear, and she even did very different voices for each character. You could really tell who was talking at any given moment just by her voice, but she didn't do it in such a jarring way that anyway, she did such a good job with that, and I absolutely adored these audiobooks. And another one is just a general shout out to anything that is narrated by this couple. Michael Kramer and Kate Reading are fantastic. I believe they're married and both narrate audiobooks, and are absolutely phenomenal. They narrated the second 2 books in the Darker Shade of Magic series, and Michael Kramer also narrated the Mistborn series, and I can't even describe, these ones are harder to describe why I love them so much. I just do. I don't know, his voice is just so deep and soothing. Her voice is pretty deep as well, but they're just such soothing voices, and I could listen to them talk forever. And he also does such a good job in the Mistborn series, just again with his pacing, I guess, in his voice is one way to put it. Just going through the action scenes and kind of all of the tension and build up that happens in the Mistborn series, he just conveys that energy so well. I absolutely love the 2 of them. I also listened to the Farseer trilogy, and Paul Boemer is another great narrator. Just his voice is just so deep and soothing, and I fell in love with Fitz in part because, well, obviously in part because of the writing, but also in part because of his voice. And yeah, I'm gonna want to listen to anything he narrates, because I don't know, his voice just conveyed such a cool atmosphere, and I absolutely love it. So I also listened to The Girl Who Drank the Moon, and I loved Christina more because she could do such different voices but do them really, really, really well. She, was portraying a grandmother and a little girl and, swamp creatures and little dragons, and she was conveying all these different creatures and all these different characters and doing them with just such heart and humor and fun, and I just absolutely adored listening to this audiobook, and I'm really, really glad I have it on audio. I also listened to all of the Girl Meets Duke series this year, and this is narrated by Mary Jane Wells, and she just did such a good job portraying the feisty, spunky heroines that Tessa Dare writes in this series. She just did such a good job being feisty and energetic and funny and really, really getting the jokes and the humor in these stories and conveying that with her voice. And I had such a blast. I was laughing out loud through all of these books. And again, it was in part because of the actual dialogue and the humor, but it was also just the way she delivered a lot of these jokes and just the nonsense that these women are just not putting up with. And I loved her so much. Another general narrator shout out is Imogen Church. She narrates all of Ruth Ware's books, and I listened to quite a few Ruth Ware books this year, and so I listened to quite a few things that she narrated, and she is one of my favorite narrators, hands down, point blank. She's one of my favorite narrators, and I love her because she once again can do different voices. Well, one, she can do different accents really well, but she can also just do different voices, male, female voices, and not exaggerate too much or kind of do too much to change her voice to make it sound overly done. But she can do male voices, female voices. She can do so many accents and really clearly distinguish each character without actually changing her voice a ton. And she does such a good job building creep and tension into her voice and conveying that kind of emotion that the characters are experiencing, and kind of putting herself in the shoes of how freaked out she would be in this situation. You can just feel the tension just in everything that she says in those books, and yeah, she's one of my favorites. I also absolutely loved everything that Brittany Presley narrated that I listened to this year. She narrated Well Met and Well Played, and she also narrated, and those are by Jen DeLuca, she also narrated To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. And I think you just kind of have, for all of them, you just kind of have to listen to see what I'm talking about, and I hope you get to listen to things that they narrate if you love listening to audiobooks. But I just absolutely love the fun and humor in her voice as well, and she just really got the characters that Jen DeLuca was writing and just made them super relatable, and could have the intonation in the right places, and just I absolutely love her. And there's also the Nevermoor series that's narrated by is it Gemma Whelan, and her narration was very, very memorable to me. She really brought all of the characters in this series to life, and there are so many different characters, and she's one that can actually do very different voices and do them really well. And she's doing everything from, these different kids to Morgan Crow's mentor, Jupiter North, and just the accents that she gave them, the humor and fun. I especially loved her doing Jupiter North. It was just so funny, just so entertaining to listen to her deliver these lines. And she really just got the whimsy and the charm down to a T with this series, and it really added to the experience and the charm to listen to it, I think. There's also, Fiona Hardingham is the next narrator I want to talk about. She also does a lot of the same books that Steve West does, actually. So she also narrated a character in the Sands of Arawia series and in An Ember of the Ashes. So she actually does quite a few books that Steve West does. So she's who I was referring to earlier. My favorite one that I listened to from her was actually The Train to Impossible Places, which was a middle grade fantasy by P.G. Bell. And so she's talking from the perspective of a 12-year-old going on an adventure. And she has a lovely voice. Just like, I love her voice in general, but also just she really got the experience of a 12-year-old going on an adventure and just conveying that. And I just had an absolute blast listening to that audiobook and listening to her narration of it. Just such a fun narrator. And I also, another one of my favorite audiobooks this year, maybe I should have actually ranked these, but another one of my favorite audiobooks this year was The Night Circus, which was narrated by Jem Dale and obviously written by Erin Morgenstern. And he was just absolute perfection for this series. And I can't even explain why, but it just felt so right to have his voice narrate this story. It just felt perfect. It felt exactly right. I don't know if could anyone else have narrated that and pulled it off the way Jem Dale did? I don't know. He also is one that didn't really change his voice too much from character to character. I mean, you could still tell who was talking, but he just has a lovely, rich voice and a lovely accent, and just got the whimsy of this. I don't know how he could convey the whimsy of the story with his voice to the degree that he did, but he just captured the magic of that story for me, and I'm so glad I listened to that one on audio. Another one that I really, really adored, Julia Whelan narrates quite a few things that I've listened to, and she also did The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, also one of my favorite books of the year, along with The Night Circus. So that was also part of why I love this, is just I love the story as well. And she did such a good job because you could really understand Addie through her voice, and she really could get the emotional moments exactly right. She also did a good job doing the other main male perspective, or delivering his lines, and yeah, she just could convey that emotion really, really well, of Addie going through time, going through 300 years of nobody remembering her, and then suddenly someone remembering her, and her trying to leave a mark on the world when she quite literally can't. And yeah, I just absolutely loved that audiobook. I also really, really liked, so I had mixed feelings about the actual book, A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, but the narration was on point, and it was narrated by Anisha Dadia, and she just got the snark and the sarcasm down. She had it down to a T. So I really hope I can listen to the rest of these as well, even just to listen to her voice. She had a great voice, and just the pacing and the way she delivered the lines and the way she understood that character was really, really great. And you could just again, just her delivering the snark and the sarcasm. like, to be fair, there were some things about the character that didn't click with me, but it wasn't because of the narration. It was because sometimes her character could kind of be too much for me. But her narration of it was absolute perfection. It's kind of hard to explain. So the next two I'll kind of lump together a little bit because I love them for the same reason. So the Caddy J series is a space pirate series by Chris Whitting that's narrated by Rupert Degas. And I also listened to Lair of Dreams this year, narrated by January Lavoie. That's the Diviner series, written by Leva Bray. And I love these two narrators because they can do so many different voices. Like, it seriously sounds, so these two, it sounded like it was a full cast audiobook. It sounded like they are a one person full cast audiobook in and of themselves. And there aren't many who can pull that off, and sometimes I would rather a narrator kind of be subtle about doing different voices, but these are some of the exceptions because these two could pull off a million different voices and you would have no idea it's the same person. Well, okay, you can tell it's the same person, but they can do so many different voices seamlessly and change them at the drop of a hat. So you could have conversations between characters with very different voices that they're doing for them, and they would just pull it off effortlessly. And I don't understand how the talent that those two have is just wild. But I would highly recommend listening to those two as narrators. I had a blast. And the last narrator I'll talk about is Robin Miles, who narrated the 5th season that I listened to this year. And I think I've listened to other stuff that she's narrated, but I would need to double check and look at the list of things she's narrated, because I'm pretty sure I've listened to other things that she's narrated, but she is absolutely brilliant. Just the control that she has over her voice and just the pacing, intonation. I mean, she just has a gorgeous voice, just an absolutely gorgeous voice. She was a born narrator, and yeah, I could listen to her talk all day, first of all. But she just really had the heart of these characters, and she just like, here you go. Here's this emotion, here's what they're feeling, here's what they're thinking, and she's incredible. She's absolutely incredible. How many times can I say that in one video? I said this would just be a gush video, and it's kind of hard to do this video. I say every year. I've only done one other video like this last year for Bookmas. I'll be sure to link it below. It's really hard to do this video because I don't necessarily, like, you just have to listen to them, and you know, maybe at some point maybe I can do a separate video where I'm just like, here, listen to however many seconds of this narrator, just so you can see what I'm talking about. But I will leave a list below as well of all of the narrators I've talked about and what books I referred to. And if you love audiobooks, I really hope you'll check out that list and check out these books or other things narrated by these narrators, because I think they are incredibly talented and really just bring the story to life. I absolutely love audiobooks. I think it is an incredible way to have a story told to you, or I think it's an incredible way to read a story. And it's such a unique experience, and if it's done really well, I think it can only enhance the talent that the author has, and you know, just add in a huge layer that really brings the story to life. And yeah, I think I'll forever love audiobooks, and I will forever want to gush about narrators that I love. So I wanted to do this video every year just because I know I hope to find more narrators that I come to love and just want to gush about them. So if you also love audiobooks and just want a new list of narrators to check out, then I got you. But thank you so much for watching this rambly video where I just basically said similar things about all these narrators. Be sure to subscribe for more bookish content, and I'll also leave my Twitter and Instagram link down below. That's where I like to hang out, and I'll also leave more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.